My name is Emily Carter. If you had passed me on the street 10 years ago, you wouldn't have remembered my face. I was quiet, careful, the kind of girl people describe as nice and then forget 5 minutes later. I worked part-time at a small bookstore in Ohio, lived in a rented apartment with thin walls, and spent most nights alone. But I wasn't always invisible. Growing up, I had a sister, Rachel, older by 3 years, louder, sharper, the kind of person who walked into a room and bent the air around her. Teachers loved her, friends followed her, boys watched her. And I learned early on that in our family, there was only room for one star. Rachel liked to remind me of that. "She's the pretty one," relatives would say, nodding toward her. "And Emily," they'd add, as if searching for a word, "she's sweet." At home, the difference was worse. Rachel mocked my clothes, my quiet voice, the way I flinched when people raised theirs. When I cried, she laughed. When I tried, she found a way to make me feel small. I told myself it didn't matter, that one day I'd leave, that one day I'd be happy. That day came when I met Daniel. Daniel wasn't flashy. He didn't walk into rooms like my sister did. He listened. He remembered details. He asked questions and waited for answers. We met at the bookstore when he asked for a book on local history. We talked for hours. For the first time in my life, someone saw me. Our relationship grew quietly. No dramatic posts, no loud declarations, just dinners, long drives, shared secrets. I didn't tell Rachel at first. Part of me wanted to protect something that was mine. But secrets have a way of surfacing. One evening, I brought Daniel to a family gathering. Rachel was already there, wine glass in hand, holding court like always. When she saw us walk in together, her eyes flicked from his face to mine. And then she laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a surprised one, a sharp, cruel laugh that cut the room in half. "You?" she said, looking straight at me. "With him?" People went quiet. I felt my face burn. Daniel stiffened beside me. Rachel tilted her head, smiling. "Wow, Emily, I didn't know you were capable of something like this." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. Then she looked at Daniel. And that's when her smile faded. Her hand tightened around the glass. The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked afraid. No one else noticed. No one except me. Rachel stopped laughing. She froze. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't the first time she had seen him. And whatever she knew, it was about to destroy all of us. After that night, nothing felt normal. Rachel avoided me. That alone was strange. She had spent most of her life enjoying my discomfort, yet now she wouldn't meet my eyes. At family dinners, she arrived late and left early. When Daniel spoke, she went silent. When he laughed, her jaw tightened. And Daniel noticed. "Does your sister hate me?" he asked one night, half joking. I told him no. I lied easily. I'd been doing it my whole life. But the truth was heavier, because I had seen Rachel's face when she froze. That wasn't jealousy. That wasn't shock. That was recognition. I started paying attention. Small things first. Rachel flinched when Daniel's phone buzzed. She stared too long at the scar near his left eyebrow. Once, when she thought no one was listening, I heard her whisper my name like a warning. "Emily, you don't know who he is." When I confronted her, she laughed it off. The old Rachel came back for just a moment, sharp, mocking, dismissive. "You really think a guy like that just finds you?" she said. "Men don't change, they hide." Her words planted doubt, and doubt grows fast in silence. So I started digging. Daniel had told me pieces of his past. He grew up in foster care, moved a lot, changed his last name in his 20s. He said it was to start fresh. I believed him. I wanted to. But then I did what Rachel never expected me to do. I stopped being quiet. I searched public records, old court filings, archived news articles from other states. At first, there was nothing. Then I widened the timeline, changed the spelling of his name, and I found it. A case from 12 years ago, another state, another name, a man who looked just like Daniel. Same eyes, same scar. The headline was vague: civil suit settled privately. No details, no charges, just silence. When I showed it to Daniel, he didn't deny it. He sighed, sat down, put his head in his hands. I was young, he said. I was angry. I made mistakes. Mistakes. That word echoed in my head. He told me he'd been involved with someone powerful, someone who twisted things, someone who made him take the fall. He said the truth never came out. And then he said something that changed everything. Your sister was there, he said quietly. I felt my heart drop. She knew me back then, before you. I confronted Rachel that same night. This time, she didn't laugh. She screamed. She accused Daniel of lying, of manipulating me. She said he was dangerous, that he ruined lives, that he nearly destroyed hers. But when I asked her what really happened, she broke down. Through tears, she admitted she had testified against him, falsely, to protect herself, to save her career. Daniel had been the convenient villain. Suddenly, the story flipped. Rachel wasn't the victim. She was the reason his life fell apart. And I realized something else, something colder, darker. Daniel hadn't found me by accident. He had known exactly who I was. And my sister's fear, it wasn't guilt. It was the sound of consequences finally catching up. After Rachel's confession, the house felt contaminated, like the walls had heard too much. She locked herself in her bedroom that night. I sat in mine, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory I had of her, every joke, every insult, every moment she made me feel small. For years, I thought she was cruel because she could be. Now, I wondered if she had been cruel because she was afraid. Daniel stayed quiet, too quiet. That scared me more than anything. The next morning, I did something that would have horrified the old version of me. I took Rachel's laptop while she was in the shower. I knew her password. She had never bothered to change it. She never thought I'd dare. What I found wasn't just proof. It was a map. Emails, old messages, legal drafts, payments labeled consulting fees that went back over a decade. Rachel hadn't just lied once. She had built a career on lies. She had testified in multiple cases, always against men who couldn't fight back, always in situations where she walked away clean. Daniel was just one of them. But there was something else. A thread of messages from 2 years ago. From Daniel. He hadn't just reappeared in my life by chance. He had contacted Rachel first. The messages were calm, polite, almost professional. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want what was taken from me. You owe me the truth. Rachel's replies were unhinged, threats, panic, desperation, and then silence. 2 months later, Daniel started working near my bookstore. My hands shook as I scrolled. He had studied me, learned my schedule, my habits, my loneliness. I felt sick. That night, I confronted him. This time, he didn't pretend. Yes, he said. I knew exactly who you were. I waited for an apology. It never came. I needed a way back into her life, he continued, and you were the only door she never locked. I slapped him. He didn't move. I loved you, I said, my voice breaking. I still do. But love doesn't erase what she did. That's when I understood the misdirection. This wasn't a love story. This was a long revenge. Daniel told me his real plan. He wasn't after money or public apologies. He wanted Rachel exposed, on record, under oath, with no way out. He had reopened his old case quietly, new evidence, new witnesses. And then he said the sentence that changed my role forever. "You need me," he said. "You're the only one she trusts." I laughed, a hollow sound. "She's never trusted me." He leaned closer. "That's why she'll never see it coming." I realized then that I wasn't just a bystander. I was leverage. But here's what neither of them knew. While they were using me as a bridge between past and present, I had started building something of my own. Because the more I read, the more I learned, the clearer it became. Daniel wasn't the only one who had been destroyed by my sister, and I wasn't sure anymore if helping him meant justice or if I was about to become something much worse. By the time the investigation reopened, Rachel was already unraveling. She stopped sleeping, started drinking earlier in the day. She called me constantly, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes pretending nothing was wrong. For the first time in our lives, the balance had shifted. She needed me. I played my role carefully. I listened, I nodded. I let her vent about Daniel, about the past, about how unfair everything was. I told her what she wanted to hear, that I believed her, that Daniel was dangerous, that I was on her side. Each lie tasted bitter. Behind her back, things were moving fast. Investigators contacted Rachel about inconsistencies in her old testimony. Nothing accusatory, just routine questions. Enough to scare her, enough to make her sloppy. And that's when she made a mistake. She asked me to help her prepare. She wanted me there when she met her lawyer. She wanted me to organize old documents, emails, timelines. She said she trusted me more than anyone. If she had looked closer, she might have seen how calm I was, because while Rachel thought she was rehearsing a defense, I was documenting a confession. Late one night, after too much wine, she finally said it. "I never thought it would follow me," she whispered. "He was supposed to disappear." Disappear. I recorded everything. Her voice cracked as she admitted she'd exaggerated details, then admitted she'd fabricated parts, then, finally, she admitted she'd been coached, not by police, not by lawyers, by herself. Because she'd learned early that tears and fear could bend truth into whatever shape she needed. The next day, Daniel asked me one question. "Are you ready?" I didn't answer right away, because there was something he still didn't know. Weeks earlier, I had found another file buried deep in Rachel's laptop, a name I didn't recognize, a sealed agreement, a woman who had taken her own life shortly after testifying in one of Rachel's cases. That woman had a sister, and I had already spoken to her. This was bigger than Daniel, bigger than Rachel, bigger than me. I agreed to testify, not as Daniel's ally, but as a witness. The day of the preliminary hearing, Rachel walked into the courtroom confident. She smiled at me across the room as if we were still sisters on the same side. Then my name was called. Her smile vanished. I took the stand calmly, clearly. I didn't accuse, I didn't dramatize. I simply told the truth about the emails, the recordings, the admissions. I watched my sister shrink with every word. Daniel never looked at me. By the time the judge ordered a full trial, Rachel was shaking. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed, headlines started forming. But the real twist wasn't public. That night, Daniel confronted me. "You went further than we planned," he said. "Yes," I replied, "because this was never just your revenge." He stared at me, realization dawning. I wasn't helping him anymore. I was finishing something much older, something that started long before Daniel ever knew my name. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, too. The trial lasted 6 weeks. By the end, the media had chosen its story. Headlines called Rachel a fallen star, a woman who went too far. Daniel was framed as a survivor, a man wronged by the system, finally finding justice. And me? I was barely mentioned, just the younger sister, just a key witness. That's how I wanted it, because while everyone was watching the courtroom, no one was watching what came next. Rachel was convicted of perjury and obstruction, not for one case, but for several. Old testimonies were reopened, careers unraveled, families came forward. The pattern was undeniable. She was sentenced to prison. The day she was taken away, she looked at me one last time. Her eyes searched my face, desperate for something familiar, something forgiving. I gave her nothing. Daniel's case was officially overturned, his record cleared, his name restored. Cameras followed him outside the courthouse as reporters asked what he planned to do next. He said one word: peace. That night, he came to my apartment. He thanked me, said none of it would have been possible without me. He reached for my hand like he always had, gentle, practiced, confident. I let him. Then I told him the truth. I told him about the other victims, the sealed files, the sister who lost her life. I told him I had already handed everything to federal investigators, everything that went beyond Rachel, including him. His face went still. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I reminded him of the gaps in his story, the inconsistencies, the people who disappeared from his past. I reminded him that revenge has a way of revealing patterns. Daniel hadn't just been wronged, he had learned. He had sought out women like Rachel, women who abused truth, and when he couldn't destroy them legally, he destroyed them quietly, financially, emotionally, socially. Rachel wasn't his first target. She was just the loudest. "You used me," he said finally. I nodded. "Yes," I said, "just like you used her, and just like she used everyone else." I stood up and walked to the door. "For years," I continued, "you both thought I was weak, invisible, someone you could step over." I opened the door. "I was right about one thing," I said. "I was ordinary." Then I looked back at him. Ordinary people notice things monsters don't. He left without another word. Months later, federal charges were announced. Daniel wasn't arrested that day, but his name entered a system that never forgets. Investigations spread. Patterns emerged. Justice moves slowly, but it moves. Sometimes, late at night, I replay that first moment in my mind. Rachel laughing when she saw me with him, the way her laughter died in her throat. That was the moment everything changed. She thought she was watching my humiliation. What she didn't realize was that she was witnessing the end of her own story and the beginning of mine.